inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, you know him as the czar of the virtual background, the one and only Omar Zini, who's got the most legitimate Portugal background I've ever seen in my life behind him. And the reason is because, like I said, we have a true legend on the show today, guys. We have Dan Gaspar, who's coached in the Champions League. He's coached for Portugal with the national team, in World Cups with Iran. He's been all over the place, guys. Dan, honestly, thanks for making the time. This is pretty big time.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to share, the art of goalkeeping with your listeners. Thank you so much. I have so much respect for you guys, and I'm humbled by the introduction. Thank you.
Well, as some people who might have been on earlier on the stream know, you have a vast collection of trophies behind you, which is just absolutely insane. And I think that's one of the reasons why we were having issues with the Wi-Fi before. They're like, you know what? There's too many trophies behind here. We don't have the bandwidth to showcase all the accolades this guy has gotten. So we've got to remove that video, right, Omar? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Did FIFA come in?
Yeah, they came in. I think they heard us, saying that if we ever needed any footage from the Champions League, we'd ask Dan, and they cut the stream right there. But Dan, if you don't mind, Dan,
you got blinded by the bling.
But no, Dan, I think, if you don't mind, for everybody that's just tuning in, and I know when we, Mike edits this down, can you just kind of give us that breakdown that you gave us about your, going to Portugal and then
Sure.
just kind of all that?
Yeah, back in 1993, the Portuguese national team was coached by Carlos Queiroz, and they came to Connecticut to compete in the U.S. Cup. And there was 4 teams that participated, of course, U.S., Ireland, Portugal, and Italy. And Portugal was scheduled to play Italy at the Yale Bowl here in Connecticut. And I convinced the board of directors at the Portuguese club that we had an opportunity to host their heroes if they would mind, having a banquet and et cetera. And they agreed. And that allowed me the opportunity to exchange some ideas with Coach Carlos Queiroz, who few people know is a former goalkeeper. And I asked him, if Portugal can produce great players like Eusebio, like Figo, like Ronaldo, why is it that they can't produce a world-class goalkeeper? And we came to the conclusion that there was no elite formal structure to develop goalkeepers. And so I was persistent, and that back in those days, there wasn't internet, it was faxes, and just saying, look, I'll pay my way. Just allow me to have the opportunity to work with your best. His power of persuasion with the federation, he convinced them to have this American, which at that time was unheard of, to come to Portugal and to share his expertise in goalkeeping. And that's how the opportunity emerged. I went to the U17 national team in Algarve first. After a few days, the U17 national team coach came up to me and said, "Hey, Dan, you don't belong here." And I'm like, oops. He goes, "You belong with the senior national team that's preparing for Italy, a World Cup qualifier." And they also happened to be doing their camp in Algarve. So I went to my first training session the night before. As you can imagine, you work all your life for this one moment. You don't get second chances for opportunities like this. So, I'm walking back and forth in my hotel room. I'm down on my knees. I'm praying to everything and everyone to give me the courage to really produce. Coach Queiroz, who's a wise man, had me come in at 9:30 in the morning to train the keepers rather than during the team training, which was at 10, because he never seen me train goalkeepers. And he wanted to make sure that I wasn't an embarrassment to him. So I was there at 9:30, got dressed in the locker room along with Victor Villa and Silvino and Nenu. And Victor Villa looks at me and goes, "Look at this guy. He dresses better than we do." And I said, "Look, I won't ask anything of you that I can't do." And we went out and we trained. And back in those days, there is standard equipment today, but it was pretty innovative back in those days, using tennis balls, reaction machines, weighted vests, weighted balls. And I was introducing that during my session. The team came on at 10 o'clock and the assistant coach was on the other half of the field trying to persuade them to go to their half to warm up. Paul Fruit at that time, who was a very, famous player for Portugal, played in Spain for Atletico Madrid, he sat the entire team down and he just started saying, "Spectacular, spectacular." So they all gathered around me and they gave me emotional, moral support, because behind the goal, there was at least 50 journalists, along with my dad, who had a radio Portuguese program for 25 years, who told me later on that these guys are all ready to crucify this American. Well, they all sprinted to Victor Villa after the session and they said, hey, what do you think of this American? And he said, look, Dan Gaspar has the quality and the level of professionalism to train goalkeepers anywhere on the planet. So he blessed me like a superstar would when they believe in somebody, and they all backed off, and that's how the international journey began.
That's insane. Do you realize how insane that story is, Dan? I mean, like, Omar's looking at that and he's like, man, why didn't that happen to me? Like, Omar's like, I had to start an Instagram channel. Like,
yeah, I was fortunate. I was very fortunate. But, you know, and when I was telling people, my father, who was my best mentor, my best goalkeeper coach, my best friend, I would tell him that I'm going to be the Portuguese national team goalkeeper coach. And he would point to his forehead and just tap with his index finger like I was crazy, as most people did during those days. But, you know, I was a pain, you know, I was persistent.
I mean, honestly, I can't even, I mean, honestly, like that, I feel like they should like make a movie, I mean, out of this. Like, I mean, like, you know, this, you know, some young American guy, you know, goes over there, you know, and he's like, oh, I've run some summer camps and things like that. And then like starts working with the youth national team. And they're like, yeah, you're too good for this. Like, you're clearly, you need to be working with our seniors who are making millions and millions of dollars. You're like, man, I'm a real far away from New England. I'll tell you that.
You know, guys, excuse me, Omar, you know, and I'm sure you can relate this with this, Omar. I mean, one thing that I learned early on in my career, we can't succeed alone. You know, we need to be surrounded by people that believe in us, that give us confidence to learn and grow, that share their wisdom and knowledge and give us opportunities. And I've been extremely blessed to have those kinds of quality people around me that showed me the way. And, you know, my tribute to them is to get on, you know, podcasts like this with Inside I18 and try to share the knowledge that I've gained with others and hopefully impact their career.
I mean, look, I mean, and by the way, for those out there who, you know, who are listening right now, you know, to the podcast, you guys may not know this, but Dan is still very fit. He's still out there actually running sessions. I mean, like over the summer during quarantine, you know, you were out there. A lot of people were like doing demos with like their outfield players. Like, you're like, yeah, I'll do it myself. And you just went out there and ran them yourself.
Well, I was home alone like everybody else. I was in quarantine, and I felt that I needed to give back to those keepers who were at home, you know, learning online, you know, their academic studies, and trying to give them challenges so that when they get back out there, they'd have a competitive edge.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of competitive edge, you know, one of the things that I kind of want to do is I kind of, as we start delving into, unless Omar, you had anything else you wanted to add before we move on to the topic here. So.
No, I think, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but, you know, Dan, your story is very similar to a story that I heard probably like 3-4 years ago about Tom Byer. And I'm sure you guys probably know that name. He was, the American, you know, played in Japan, stayed in Japan with his wife, and, you know, was essentially on TV, bringing exactly what you essentially wanted to bring to, you know, Portuguese goalkeeping to Japanese football. And through the grassroots way, he was on TV, I think, for like 13 years. Every single Sunday, and it was we were watching cartoons here, and he was the one who was showing kids, you know, different tricks and stuff. And then you fast forward, and again, it may have seemed crazy for him when he had first started, but then you fast forward and you start noticing that young players from like the Japanese women's team that won the World Cup and are formidable opponents of the U.S. and formidable across the world. Those are the players who used to be on that channel every single weekend watching. So, do you feel like from your, I guess we'll get into it later, but Dan, just a quick answer for that is kind of his experience and Tom's kind of influence in Japan. Do you feel like you were able to kind of have that similar influence with Portuguese goalkeeping? And then from that, I guess, template, you brought that back to the States, and then you obviously have Star Goalkeeping Academy, which has been, you know, around for so many years.
I have a lot of respect for Tom Byer. He's a mutual friend. We stay in contact on a regular basis. And people in this country don't imagine or can't imagine the impact that he's had in Asia. It's really, really incredible. And again, he was persistent. He believed. in, developing young players at home. And he shared that message and that philosophy around the world. So really a tremendous guy. And I would call him, and I would hope to think that I'm in that same category where we're U.S. ambassadors, we're U.S. soccer ambassadors, we're representing our culture. My formal education was here in the United States, my coaching license, attending university, et cetera. And I learned the business of soccer in the United States, but I always wanted to try to learn the business of winning, which are totally two different aspects of our game. And for me to learn the business of winning, I felt I needed to go overseas where soccer was integrated into their culture. It was a passion. And so I learned a great deal. Whether I had an impact in Portugal or not, that's not for me to say. I can say that there's a number of Portuguese goalkeepers who reference me and my methods, who stay in contact with me. And I'm just, extremely fortunate to have that platform in a country that really didn't have formalized goalkeeping education, really didn't have a mythology. And that was one of the purposes that Coach Carlos Queiroz brought me to Portugal, because we did the first ever goalkeeping coaching course in Portugal. We did a goalkeeping workshop for all the goalkeeper coaches in Portugal, and I wrote a number of articles and et cetera. So that was a platform that allowed me, to share my knowledge, but also to gain confidence, that I had something to offer.
Yeah. It's funny you said that, Dan, because I think this really kind of leads into the topic. And by the way, guys, today's topic was actually one that Dan wanted to bring up right here. And it's kind of the relevance of the goalkeeper coach. Because, I think one of the things, and as we kind of start discussing this, Dan, is that the goalkeeper coach is really one of the reasons that you wanted to go over to Europe. And yes, maybe they might not have not had a formal methodology in regards to the goalkeeping aspect from the isolationist goalkeeper coach, technical standpoint. What they really did have, though, was the integration of the goalkeeper into the actual team dynamics and kind of how that you guys were kind of trailblazers to kind of the direction that goalkeeper coaching is going now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what is the importance of the goalkeeper coach? And I'd like to answer that with a question. How important is the goalkeeper to the team? I think it's fair to say that if you have an average goalkeeper and you have a quality or good team, that team now drops to an average team. But if you have an average team with an outstanding goalkeeper with quality, now that team becomes competitive and potentially can lift a trophy. So, the goalkeeper coach's roles have changed over the years, and I think that we're going to get into that a little bit later on. But for me, I always viewed goalkeeper coaches in several different partnerships. The one that everybody understands, the goalkeeper and the goalkeeper coach, where in that particular relationship is usually very special, and there's typically a very strong bond, because there needs to be an open dialogue, there needs to be cooperation, there needs to be motivation, which is essential. And in that particular relationship, you got to focus on mastering the techniques, the warm-ups, the cool downs, establish the goals, establish training ethics, mental conditioning, introduce the joy of the game so they fall in love with the game, positioning, reducing the size of the goal. And then you get into the macro structure where it's the goalkeeper coach and the head coach. And that's really significant. Oftentimes that relationship isn't as strong as it should be. Also, the goalkeeper needs to realize that they can play without the fear of mistakes. Generally speaking, when a goalkeeper makes a fatal mistake, the first reaction of a head coach is to switch goalkeepers, and the goalkeeper needs to play and without fear, and understanding that they have the confidence of the coach, the head coach as well. And in that relationship, you need to have harmony. There needs to be interaction with the team, communication, coordination, cooperation. You have to discuss the training equipment, the space, the training times, and the warm-up should reflect the objectives of the team. And then you have keeper, team, and game. Who's the best goalkeeper coach, guys? Michael, it isn't you. It isn't Omar. It isn't Saskia. It isn't
On,
Dan
by the way, but
Gaspar.
thanks for saying that. Great timing. Thanks, Dan.
I have to tell it like it is. But anyways, the point
Wow.
I'm making,
Maybe I should sign back off.
no, stay on. I wish I could see you. But anyway, the point I'm making is the game is the best coach, and connecting the keeper to the game is extremely important, because that's where you now get into the really differences in levels, the decision making, the distribution, the communication, the rhythms of the match. When I'm preparing goalkeepers at the high level, if I'm playing against a team from Norway, or versus a team like Brazil or South America or Europe or Africa, my training methods and my preparation that week are going to be entirely different, because the rhythms of the match are different. And so the goalkeeper needs to stay within the rhythm of the match. They can't be, playing, hard rock in their head and the game is jazz. It just doesn't work. So there needs to be, that synergy. But those are the kinds of partnerships that I believe are important regarding the goalkeeper coach.
I mean, Dan, honestly, like one of the things that you just said right there, I've honestly never thought about, and we'll let Saskia chime in a second right here, but Omar's been patiently waiting, with his lovely virtual background. But Dan bringing up the thing about the harmony, and then you can't be coaching jazz, and you got hard rock in your head. And I've never really thought about that before, is that you have to run your sessions based on the opponent that you're facing, as opposed to, this is how we run our sessions, this is how we run our teams, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think, Dan, I'm just going to ask you a question. I know we talk about, certain objectives and making sure that, there's harmony within the team and making sure the goalkeepers know the style and all that. But when you've been, in a full season, has there been opportunities where, you have certain objectives with each goalkeeper at the beginning of the season, and then as the season gets, full, and you guys have, 2-3 games a week and midweek games and all that stuff. Is it difficult? Have you found it difficult to maintain the same objectives, or are those objectives fluid with each goalkeeper? So, I had a goalkeeper during the season, and then, during the season, he obviously is getting more and more games, but he wants to work on certain things. But it's like, we have so many games, I can't have you, serving with your left foot, even though that was an objective at the beginning of the season, or, what I'm saying? So like, how have you been able to, manage those things and kind of come back to those certain points that you started off in the season with?
I mean, that's an excellent question, Omar. And the goal setting is always dynamic. It isn't static. And what you're doing with the goalkeepers is a reflection of their performances and where they're at, not only technically, tactically, physically, as well as mentally. At the highest levels, it's about managing egos. And goalkeepers are different. You have some goalkeepers who love to do video analysis. There's other goalkeepers who don't appreciate that. I've had a goalkeeper, pre-season would enjoy video analysis, but during season, they wanted nothing to do with it. At the end of the day, it isn't me that plays the game. It's the goalkeeper that plays the game. When I get into that kind of environment, I find out what they like, what they don't like. I have a certain number of days that belong to me, and I'll give them 1 or 2 days that belongs to them. It also, Omar, is a reflection of the culture, and working on different continents during my career, it's been very different approaches. For instance, when I worked with Japanese goalkeepers, they're very disciplined. They're always seeking perfection. They have a regiment. Change for them is a disaster. It gets chaotic. They're extremely hard on themselves. They don't like physical contact. They don't shake hands. So I had to create activities that would allow them to have some combative activities so that they can be best prepared, for the Asian Cup. They're always seeking to be and obsessed with perfection. For them is, let's say we have a pregame warm-up, Omar, and, we decide it's 10 volleys and then we move on to the next activity. If I stop at the 9th, they're freaking out. I'll working with Tony Yo as an example was entirely different. He only wanted to move on to the next activity until he was comfortable and confident with the activity that he was doing. Portuguese goalkeepers, they tend to be, again, the game I mean, you got 11 million people in Portugal, that depend on their heroes to give them happiness and pride. So, they love to play, they love to compete. They're always curious about, training innovations, and they're complete players. Some of the best goalkeepers that I've had the opportunity to train were the best field players, African goalkeepers. They're full of joy, they're happy, they're regardless of whatever the reality is, their athleticism is off the chart. You got to treat them a little bit different. The Persians, when I worked in Iran, extremely sensitive, very emotional. They're overly concerned about how their teammates and the fans perceive them, but they're very open to learning and growing. I think the Americans are the most balanced. Why do I say that? Athletically, they're big and strong. They have intelligence. Most of them, have a good academic background. They have, they're well balanced emotionally as well as athletically. They have all the support systems around them. And the thing about American goalkeepers, they'll ask you why. Why are you doing this? Whereas when you're training goalkeepers overseas, they never challenge the coach. They never would ask why. And again, we got a great one on the podcast now with Saskia. I mean, the female goalkeepers are just simply the best in the world that we've produced in this country.
I'd like Saskia, to chime in right there. See, well, he had to make up for earlier when he was like, it's not Saskia. No, because
that's okay. I know it's not me. It's
no, but he was trying to make a point in regards to just goalkeeper coaches and shit. It was just such timing.
I know.
Don't try to save me, Mike.
It's okay. I was listening. It's all right.
But no,
I don't have
Dan,
an ego.
You brought up a good point that Saskia, I want to ask you, because the thing is that you have been involved in different, whether it's different cultures in regards to different cultures internationally, different cultures in regards to the demand of the game and the level that you're coaching at or whatever. But the goalkeeper coach, the relevance of the goalkeeper coach is going to kind of be based on that dynamic of that level that they're coaching at, right? Like the way you're going to coach your UCLA keepers is going to be a little bit different than if you were coaching the national team, let's just say. Okay. Maybe bad example. They're very high
level of my UCLA keeper. I think we've talked about this before, and no matter where I played and stuff, you take bits and pieces from everything to make yourself a well-rounded goalkeeper. Dan's absolutely right. When I was in Japan, everything was so regimented and so like perfection driven. But I took pieces of that to elevate my game individually. And I think that when we were talking about like, how do you structure your training? Like in season's different than out of season. A good example for me is I have to fly to Colorado tomorrow. It's supposed to be a blizzard. That's why we play in the fall. But I tweaked my training today to deal with circumstances that might come up if there's snow on the ground, if the field is slick, if we get moved from grass to turf. And that's like, those are things that in season you do. So, a lot of stuff today was focusing on body behind the ball, rebound, skipping off the ground, movement, and everything like that. And, extra emphasis on body behind the ball because of the elements we might go into. So as a goalkeeper coach at this level, like that's where you're tweaking things. It's not just, okay, here we're coming out and this is what we're doing. And we're doing like, 50 volleys or this or that and the other. No, like, you have to, I'm not technically doing it for what the other team does per se. Right now it was more for the elements, but on other days I do it because I know that the team might like to shoot from outside. Like they don't play many balls into the box. So, those leading up to the game, that would be the training, and it'll be, having my goalkeeper see that situation.
I see Omar nodding his head right here, because I think, one of the things that I'm just thinking about right now, and Omar, I don't know how you feel about this, is that we're just showcasing right there just the relevance of the goalkeeper coach in regards to things that a lot of times maybe the outfield player coaches aren't thinking about in regards to the goalkeeper, and how important it is to have that that wire between the outfield staff and the goalkeeper, because you've been in situations before where you didn't have, let's just say, a goalkeeper coach, and a lot of the times, you know, a lot of these things aren't taken into consideration.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just kind of nodding my head to what both Dan and Saskia were saying, just because I think now as well with the new innovations, and there's so many people, you know, creating different like non-grip gloves just to, you know, get used to your handling technique. Then we have soccer balls that are oddly weighted, so now, you know, through traffic you have to have your body behind the ball. So there's so many different resources now and equipment that can actually help you, you know, get ready for a game in Colorado in a blizzard. And I think as goalkeeper coaches, because we were goalkeepers at one point or another, depending on what level as well, you know, sometimes you never play on turf at the pro games. So most likely you're trying to get your goalkeepers who are playing on grass, like at UCLA, to wear studs. And you know, there are certain things that goalkeepers need to have where, like, hey, today you need to bring out the studs so we can get that prepared. Cal State LA, we only play on turf. So it's just those kind of things. And again, those are in my opinion, what I loved about Cal State LA is that the head coach didn't pretend that he knew certain things about goalkeeping, and it empowered me. He would say, Omar, tell me what you need from the goalkeepers. Tell me what you think the goalkeepers need. This is the scouting report that we're looking at. What do you think they need for this weekend? I'm going to tell you what my team needs, and then tell me what the goalkeeper needs in the sessions as well, so we can try to, you know, simulate everything for you. So it's just, again, that link between the head coach, but the head coach also has to understand and respect what the goalkeeper coach provides.
Right, but at the same time, even with like us going through certain things today, like whether it was distribution from the goalkeeper, where not to play it because of their strengths, like, you know, we're playing into their hands, into this and that and the other, and that is an open communication between myself, the goalkeepers, and the head coach and the assistant coach. You know, it's not like, okay, let's jump in and just do it. No, it's like, hey guys, this is what we have to do. We're going to simulate some stuff. This is where not to play the ball. And in other situations, that is where to play the ball. So, you know, as I said, you know, in season is different than out of season.
Yeah, you know, Dan, I want to ask you, because obviously, you know, coaching at the highest of levels and everything like that, was it a kind of, I don't want to say eye-opening, or kind of you know, kind of empowering to you when Carlos was just so adamant that, you know, he wanted your input on this, he wanted your input on that, you know, as opposed to maybe before, where you would kind of, I don't want to say the goalkeeper coach in America traditionally was kind of put in the corner, but kind of a little bit.
I mean, it all depends on the relationship that you have between the goalkeeper coach and the head coach. If you're fortunate and the head coach is open-minded and they respect your opinion, and there's an exchange and there's feedback on what the goal and the purpose is for training and how you can best prepare the goalkeeper to meet the mission of the team and the head coach, that's fantastic. That isn't always the case. You know, that's something that's earned, you know, and then you can go above and beyond that. You can get into free kicks and set pieces. You can work with your back line. It becomes more challenging at a higher level because, once again, you're dealing with egos, not only the head coach, but with the assistant coaches. I mean, you know, we have assistant coaches that are becoming knowledgeable about training goalkeepers, but I don't have a clue what it feels like missing an open net. I don't have a clue what it means about scoring a brilliant goal to win a game. Just like the assistant field player coach has no clue about making a save that wins the game, or making that blunder, that fatal mistake that loses a game. Or, you know, Omar and Saskia, you understand what I'm saying? That journey when the ball crosses the goal line, it's only a few yards, but man, is that torturous to pick up the ball at the back of the net. So those are intimate details that I believe, if you're a former goalkeeper, that translates into a better understanding, especially on the mental aspect of it. You know, one of the things that, you know, that's always an open debate is like fitness tests. You know, and a lot of field player coaches require the goalkeepers to have the same fitness tests as
all
field
my
players.
life.
Right? And you know what? I mean, I struggle with that. I'm dealing with it right now. I'm having a discussion right now with the head coach about this. And, you know, I could take a field player who's the fittest on the team, and within, you know, 10 or 12 minutes, I have them crawling off the pitch.
Well, I always tell that story, Dan, about how Tony took the girls were bitching. I won't say who, the national team, like, why when we're doing fitness training, the goalkeepers over there doing like pressure training or something like that. So one day Tony said, everybody grab a ball, and took the entire national team through like 10 pressure training drills. And let me tell you, and Mia Hamm tells the story, she never bitched about it again.
Yeah,
Ever.
you know, that's exactly right. I mean, it's a great story, and it's very relevant. I mean, if I want to be a good swimmer, I don't run around the swimming pool. If I want to be a good pool player, I'm not going to run around the pool table.
Well, but I think that in the argument of that, Dan, I think that there is a baseline of fitness at a certain level.
Yes.
And I think that if you're coming in and you're doing a fitness test to test like a medium level, like a baseline, like, oh my God, my dogs agree.
they want to get the fit. While that's going on, Omar, actually, I want to get in with you right here, because I think one of the things that we've discussed in regards to the goalkeeper coach, and nowadays, obviously, Dan, as we know, there's that element of wanting the goalkeeper coach to be involved in so many aspects of the game and so many aspects of the of the club.
Hold on, let me finish my thought really quick.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Sure. My point being is that there is an argument there for just having a baseline of fitness. Like, like, here's a test. It's an athletic test. This is your kind of like your range of what we expect. If you're below this range, and I don't care if you're a field player or a goalkeeper, you're not fit, period. And so then that's an issue. What you get above that, goalkeepers will be different than field players and stuff, fine. But if you're below this, then you didn't come into camp fit, period. No matter what position you're playing. And I do believe in that. I do believe in that.
I like the challenge of that, regardless of what position you're playing, to have that baseline, like you said. But I was involved in a situation where it was a Cooper test. They had to do it in 12 minutes. And the starting goalkeeper came in at 12 minutes and 5 seconds. And do you know the starting goalkeeper was out for about 6 weeks until he made the 12 minute?
Oh,
and
sounds like Anson was the coach.
and missed a number of matches. I mean,
well, that's ridiculous.
No, but it's true. This is just a Division I program. So in any case, sometimes I struggle, and obviously there needs to be a level of fitness, and if you're at a quality program, that's to be expected. But it's different. It's you're talking. Your home is your goal. Your real estate that you own is your goal area. It's all about explosiveness, as you guys know. It isn't about endurance.
No. And so the Cooper test, I wouldn't agree with the Cooper test as a baseline fitness test. Do I agree with maybe the beep test, changing direction, short distance and stuff like that, depending on what the baseline is? Yeah, there's some tweaks to the beep test that we've done. Whether I think cones or shuttles, is there a baseline there because it's quick change of direction and explosiveness? Yeah, but do I think 120s are like a fitness test that you should find a baseline for keepers to join in? No, the baseline test, the test has to be all encompassing across the board of every player on the field. Mm-hmm. It can't just feed into your outside wingers or that are running 8 miles a game. Like,
and I've had situations where the keepers come to me after the fitness test and they're shattered. Mm-hmm. Not only are they shattered, but their recovery time is a lot longer than the field player who's accustomed to that type of challenge.
Yeah, it's funny, Dan, while you bring that up, actually, I want to kind of throw that back to Omar, because Omar and I, we've had these discussions in regards to the fitness, and you've been in situations either as a coach or a player where they've been kind of, there hasn't been that direct connection in regards to understanding, like, hey, do you realize what we just did and now what you're expecting out of the goalkeeper right now?
Right.
You wouldn't expect the same thing out of the field players if we'd just done this right now, right?
Well, because a lot of times the next thing after fitness test is something low impact running wise on field players, which means some kind of near far slot or like power finesse shooting. So you got the field players that are like standing in the line doing like power finesse. And you got the goalkeepers that just did a beep test that are flying all over the place. Not fair.
Yeah, I think, it's I use myself as an example, and I definitely did a lot of goalkeeping fitness in my off seasons at Davis, and then during the season or getting myself ready for the season, I didn't do enough running, and I felt like the goalkeeping side of things was great, but then my body started to break down. I didn't do enough strength training. I didn't do enough band assessments or anything like that. So probably by like the 10th, 12th game, the physical side of me started to deteriorate. And then also when that deteriorates, it gets into your mental, and then all the goalkeeper fitness and all those decisions you had at your fittest as a goalkeeper, those started to deteriorate as well. So as Sas said, there needs to be a baseline that you come in at, and then from there we start sharpening it up. But I had a goalkeeper one time.
At that baseline, Omar, then some of that, if I send you home with something, part of that is your baseline running, but the other part is, yes, keeper fitness. But I can get you fit. Like I can get you keeper fit from being baseline fit. If it can't do it the other way around. It'll take me too long if you come in like keeper fit, and you will break down eventually. I agree with that.
And that was, I had a friend of mine who went to USF, University of San Francisco, and he was telling me, he's 2 years older than me, and he was telling me that, the coach would sit on top of a hill and they'd watch them run, and he's like, don't worry about, he's like, just, again, the advice you're getting from people is very contextual. You have to understand. He was like, dude, don't worry about fitness prior to the season, because once you get there, they're going to run you to whatever, so you'll get fit ridiculous. There. Yeah, no, but again, for him, it was like he's a guy who takes care of his body and all that. But for me, it was like an excuse not to do anything. And then rude awakening, I get there my freshman year, and then they kill us in preseason. I'm getting in shape, I'm getting fit, but then that plateau starts to really come a lot sooner than you want it to. So I think again, that's the evolution of science, and I'm sure Dan can attest to this as well. I mean, maybe not because you're coaching at such a high level, so maybe they're more advanced. But at Cal State LA and other places that I've coached, the science has been
Cal State, LA, Porto. It's all the same, right, Omar?
Dan, coaching at the highest level, and for me, playing at the highest level, the bottom line is you have to maintain something all year round. And if you're going to be one of those players that ebbs and flows, says, okay, I'm going to get really fit. I got 3 weeks until I come into preseason, or I got a month until I come into, camp or something. I'm going to work really hard. And then the times I'm off, I'm going to chill. And then, so you're always like ebbing and flowing. And what you want to do as a player, to all you players out there, you want to keep a balance. You want to maintain a certain level of fitness that when you have to spike, when you have to say, I have 2 weeks, I got to come into preseason, I have 2 weeks, I have to come to camp now, or a month, I'm going to elevate my training, go harder. But I always have this base. Like if you keep going below that base, guess what? You're going to get hurt, period. You're going to get hurt. And don't ever count on rolling into a national team camp, a preseason camp at any level and expecting them to get you fit. Because when people ask me, what's the one thing they can do coming in? Be fit, because I can work on everything else. But if I have to spend 2 weeks getting you fit, I'm going to be pissed. Period.
Now, but I do want to say this though, real quickly.
Is Dan still on?
No, Dan's still on.
Yeah.
Dan's definitely still on. But I do want to say this personally, because, and Dan, you might be able to help me out right here. Is like, from the mental aspect, right? You were bringing up the Cooper test, right? I honestly would remember, and I think this was a detriment to my development in college, is I would spend the last few weeks before coming into college preseason trying to pass the Cooper freaking test. And I ended up training to pass some stupid test that had nothing to do with my goal, with whether I was going to be able to play as a goalkeeper that season. And now I come into camp and now I'm behind in certain areas because I've just spent the last 3 weeks working with a trainer to get me to be able to pass a test under 12 minutes. Congratulations. I finally do it. And then 3 weeks later, I can't pass it anymore. Sorry, that's my rant there.
The point I was trying to make is that, each position has its own requirements of fitness. And I've had oftentimes a goalkeeper tell me that they're fit. And their definition of being fit is these long distance runs and et cetera that have nothing to do with the position. And then I'm with them after 5, 7, 10 minutes and they're vomiting over at the corner. They're in the corner. Yeah. So, I agree with Saskia in terms of having a base, but let's not neglect what your position requires and make sure that.
And like I said, if you give my summer program, you have to integrate both. Like you better be hitting the ground. Because you could come in and do the beep test or something like that, fine. But when we're going over and we have to start training and you haven't been hitting the ground, you haven't been getting up and getting down, you haven't been doing that movement. Now you're going to get hurt as well. So it's got to be both.
Agreed.
Dan, I got a question for you right here. Obviously you've
Yeah.
coached at the highest of levels. Do you feel that now, with the way that the game has evolved, that like the isolated goalkeeper coach is a thing of the past, and that really what they're looking for are assistant coaches who have a specialization in goalkeeping?
Look, training goalkeepers on a separate island, isolated from the team, has some value and has its merits. However, the game has evolved, the coaching has evolved, that to fully maximize the potential of the goalkeeper, they need to be integrated within the team structure for all aspects. As I mentioned earlier about communication, coordination, distribution, those sorts of things. So it has its value, and I continue to believe it has its value. However, the emphasis now, the modern method of training, there's more integration, and there's a lot of changes. I mean, the advances in technologies, the collection of data is so impressive now. The increased interaction between goalkeepers and field players, the rule changes, right? The back pass changed, immensely the training methods of goalkeepers. So, social media, the access to information, so much has changed, and there's less emphasis on technique and more on decision making. But guys, I'm going to say two things that I think are going to be very controversial, and we're going to have a debate on. And based on my observations, there's two things that I'm concerned and I struggle with, and I need you guys to tell me otherwise. But this star save, this K save, this block, it drives me absolutely
Oh my
insane.
God, Dan.
It
drives me crazy.
I'm so happy you're with me on this, because
absolutely insane.
You take that save was transferred from indoor soccer, from futsal, from ice hockey, where the goal is smaller, where the puck or ball is smaller, where the spaces are tighter, and basically it's survival, just any sort of reaction to keep the thing. Now it's being introduced. I'm traveling around and I'm seeing keepers taking that positions when shots are 18 yards away. So where has the courage gone? Where has the bravery gone?
But Dan, I say this all the time, and the guys know it. It drives me crazy. It's like you're 5 to 10 yards away, and you're doing a K save, and what's happening? You're going to the ground. They're just putting the ball 5 yards above you, 5 feet above you, and it's going in the goal. You're not doing it at the right time. You're not. It's not trained properly. Where is the courage? Where is getting to the 50-50 ball, hands to the ball, smothering the ball, or beating them there, or then closing the space, standing them up, or that's gone, and this K save sucks. I'm sorry, it sucks.
Yeah, it does, and it's a last resort. And if you're in that position, several things went wrong. You didn't communicate properly to shut it down. You didn't put pressure on the shooter or ball, and it's the last resort. It's the last option. And the professionals that are doing it at the highest levels, they're just trying to avoid to get injured. If you see,
they're not even doing it good either. How many times have I watched De Gea try to do it and get scored on?
And his head is, his eyes are away from the ball, his head.
Turning his head,
the
whole night.
So that's one. The second one, we are losing, my friends. We are losing, my friends, the art of catching. We really are. Today's day and age, if you block a ball, you get accolades for it. Now, yes, the balls are lighter, they're hit harder, and etc. But we can catch more. The fear of making the mistake is so great that now we're just punching, blocking balls out of the goal. There's no better player in the world than when a goalkeeper has the ball in their two hands. They are the masters. The game stops. We have a privilege to use our hands, and we have to master catching. When I was young, I used to strike thousands of balls against a brick wall until I could kick it as hard as I could, and I would hold it. It was one-touch goalkeeping. And I believed at that time I could hold everything. And when I had some doubt, okay, I boxed or punched or deflected with the heel of the hand. But today, everyone's blocking, everyone's deflecting. They're not keeping possession, not for themselves or the team.
You guys know my answer again to this.
No, I want to hear Omar. I want to hear Omar. This is great. I feel like
1,000% on this. 1,000%.
I feel like I'm pardon the interruption or something.
I think part of that, Dan, comes from kids watching. And I will look at people that do it. I'll look at kids that do it and I'll be like, I didn't strike the ball that hard at you. What are you doing? Catch the ball. Like, because, you know, you see an EPL goalkeeper or somebody like that, you know, maybe they're dealing with a ball coming at 80 miles an hour and it's moving all over the place. And that's what happened. I go, I just knocked you a volley in your pocket. Catch the ball. Catch the ball. Because the one thing we don't want to do is give up rebounds. And that's, maybe I'm old school. I'm sorry. But I think it's I say, and I agree with that. All my goalkeepers better be catching the ball at UCLA. You better be holding.
At least control catching, which is if you have doubts, just knock it down in front of you and sweep it up.
So I want to say this right now because I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and I want to see how Omar was obviously somebody who breaks down film of goalkeepers at all the different levels and everything like that. Now, personally, my devil's advocate thing right here with this, Dan and Saskia, is that, and I want Omar to comment on this right here, is that you only know what you know. And if youth goalkeepers are being taught something and they're not being taught the why of what to do something, or even being presented with the opportunity of learning how to handle properly, or how to go down into a smother situation or stay in a compact shape or whatever, they're not going to be able to do it, right, Omar?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. But also too, I think, you know, now with breaking down so much stuff and have people send me so many different clips, the evolution of social media has not only, you know, brought the blocking technique to the forefront because of goalkeepers like De Gea, goalkeepers like Neuer, Ter Stegen, all the guys who are, you know, the best at doing it. And it's also exposed and almost pushed that out of the game. You know, I don't know how many people we've had on here, Mike, in different, you know, different settings who despise the block save. And then to your point, Mike, as well, it's, at the same time, but these kids are watching these games without any context. They're being taught these things without any context. So, as like I, you know, Sask famously always says, these kids are so literal, and unfortunately, you know, a lot of these kids don't know how to watch film. So I think, again, it's one of those things that we need to continue to bring up. But in my opinion, too, it's not so much like, hey, we detest this technique, don't use it. It's more of just like, hey, this is a technique that if you use it in the right settings, for sure, it's going to be useful for you. But right now, you're defaulting, and these players are all defaulting. So I think, yes, it's one thing for us to mention it, but also to understanding when it's the proper time to use it.
Right, and that's something that we always talk about. It's like, you have to understand when and why, like whether it even is blocking the ball and not catching the ball, whatever situations. I watched a video of a player, and the entire drill, she was like just parrying the ball, blocking the ball. And I was like, well, maybe that's the drill. Like, I was like, you know, I was watching it. And then I realized, no, that's what she's being taught. Like, there's no reason for her to do that right here. Catch the ball. Like, and so I was watching it. I was like, wow. I was like, this is what she's being taught right now. Just get it out of, you know, get it out of your area. It's not your problem now. And I was just like, oh my God, open your hands and catch the ball. Catch the ball. Just please catch the ball. And you know, I think kids are literal. They see De Gea, they see people doing things, but in what context? And that's why I said, you know, how is the ball traveling? What was the movement on it? What was the situation? Like, you know, it's a lot different than me hitting a ball at like a 10-year-old. Like,
yeah, and I think, and Dan, I don't know what you think about this, but, you know, Anthony White from Bournemouth, or formerly at Bournemouth, he brought up the idea that, hey, we shouldn't be doing volleys and you know, serving that ball straight to their hands every single time, because that's not really, it's more of a technique. It's not really a skill. You're not really, you're not going to be able to use that same skill set that you're training every single day with, like, you know, 20, 30 volleys to your hands. You're not going to be able to do that in the game. It's very, very rarely does that ball come straight to your eyes and you're going to be able to catch the ball like you do with a volley. So I think, again, that's also one of those things where discussions like that are very important. It's like, okay, is it better to just start the training session with services off the ground, or even with drop kicks? Because drop kicks, as you know, as coaches know, they vary a lot more than just straight volleys. So again, those are the context pieces I think, Sas, you're trying to, you know, you're discussing as well. And Dan, for you, I mean, I'm sure you may have heard that. Do you think that that's something that we should try to work out of training sessions, like no more volleys, everything off the ground, or everything off of half volleys?
Nothing replaces striking a moving ball. You know,
what'd you say, Dan?
Nothing replaces striking a moving ball.
No, of course.
From the ground. Okay. I think volleys can be part of a session. I do use them part of the session in the warm-up phase. But we never finish with a It's just getting their hands warm, making sure the hands are shaped properly, make sure they're receiving the ball. The biggest thing that I have found, not the biggest, but one of the things that I have found is our goalkeepers are robotic. They're too rigid and they're not flexible enough. So if I take a ball and throw it off a brick wall, it's going to come back hard. And a lot of goalkeepers are that stiff. If I take a ball and throw it into the net's going to embrace it. It's going to welcome it. It's going to shape itself to the ball. So our bodies have to be like pillows when we receive the ball. So to answer your question, Omar, I think it's a fair, valid point, but I'm not going to eliminate it from my toolkit, and I'll use it. And also in volleying the ball, it isn't just the goalkeeper stationary. You can volley while they're moving. So it's a portion of my session. I will continue to do it, but I'll always finish up with a match related or match condition situation.
No, and I agree with you, Dan, on that. Like, it's a build for me as well. First of all, any kid listening out there, go take a ball and volley it against a wall and catch it 100 times. Do it 3 times a week. Just do it. It's what I did when I didn't have anybody to play with. I would take it. I would go out to a tennis wall. I would take and I would volley. Not to mention it helps your kicking, but number 2, it helps your timing. The closer you get to the wall, the faster your reaction. See if you can get your hands up. Absolutely. So we don't all have, you can train yourself by doing that. Number 1. Number 2, hand-eye coordination, timing, quickness. I use the volley in the beginning. There's always movement. It'll graduate into a ball on the ground, a half volley, a moving ball, and everything. But in the beginning, let's clue you in. Let's get your eyes going. Let's get your hands going. Just let's get some rhythm. And then then it's a progression. And I won't get rid of that either. But kids out there, you don't always have anybody to shoot on you. And if it's your mom and dad, and I'm pretty sure they're not striking the ball properly at you. So, go to a wall, knock them out, knock it out, because you'll start holding more balls than you ever believe if you do that.
I agree. Wall training is terrific. And then I would progress to a big round tree, because then
you have no idea where the ball's going.
And now you're working on catching and you're working on reflection. And I just want to finalize with this on this particular topic and goalkeeper coaches should have pride in striking their ball. Absolutely. 2 things on that. Number 1, they won't be striking balls for the rest of their lives. There's going to be a point in their career, and that's where I'm at right now, where I can't strike a ball nearly as hard or as accurate as, a 20-year-old in college. Okay. So be prepared as a goalkeeper coach. How are you going to transition out of that? How are you going to phase out of that? And now I bring in field players when I train my goalkeepers, even if it's a private session or a small group session, I bring field players in. And then the last thing is, I still haven't met a goalkeeper coach who can strike the ball like Ronaldo. Or can strike a ball.
I don't know if you've met Omar. You've met Omar. You've met Omar now. So.
Well, Dan, I'm going to agree with you on that. Like, I'll tell you, the other day I pulled my quad right before a game the other day because I was shooting the ball so hard at Lauren because of how strong she is and everything that I have to bring in the field players who, who can just knock that ball and knock her into the back of the net and challenge her. I can kick a hard ball and stuff like that, but I'm getting up there and I was like icing my quad, but if you can utilize that, Omar, just shut up. You're 28. If you can utilize that. And I have kids that are coming off the, rehab or whatever, and they're allowed to strike a ball. These girls can hit a ball, and it graduates into that. And I will use that 100% because that's more realistic for them.
But now that's actually just coming into getting back to the topic about in regards to relevance. Like, this is an example right here of where like the goalkeeper coach needs to understand how much relevance they have in this situation in regards to getting their ego out of the way. Omar, I know this has been a conversation that that we've had in the past in regards to. Yes, like Dan, I love the fact that you brought about I haven't met a goalkeeper coach who can strike the ball like Ronaldo. No, I mean, it's very true. If you want to simulate the game, we need to match the demands of the game of the level of the keepers that we're coaching at. That being said, same thing, Omar, if you're and I'm not just saying you, I'm just talking to you, is that if you're training a 10-year-old and you're hitting the ball like Ronaldo, that's not realistic to the demands of their game either, right?
Yeah. No, I think that was like the first time you've ever brought that up to me. I was just thinking, damn, okay, you're right. Like these kids aren't going to see a service like this in a game. So I need to probably, take a little bit less off of it, try and, work on my, slotting the ball a certain way versus trying to put power behind it. Cause most likely they're not going to be able to see that or get that in the game. So
they're not
no,
going to get a crisp strike. They're going to get, and you have to think about that. Like even depending on the game, at certain levels, that ball is going to dip. It's not going to keep rising. It's a totally different strike from a different level. We can't just get up there and bam, 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 depending on their age group.
No, I think also too, again, this is a conversation I had with Anthony White, and he was telling me, he said, hey, I said in one of my sessions, and he was like, look, I like the idea, I like the concept, Omar, but you're striking the ball on the final action the exact same way every single time. I was using a rebounder, and it was coming back, and I was hitting it first time on the volley. And he's like, the idea is there. They're moving to the post. You're getting it off the rebounder. Great. But what happens in a game? They're not going to get the same shot every time. So when that ball comes back to you, why don't you bring it down with your right thigh, strike it with your left foot? Why don't you bring it down with your chest, take it like a second or two, and then strike the ball? Very rarely are goalkeepers going to move, and then right when they finish their movement, they're going to get a shot. Most likely, it's going to be 1 or 2 seconds from their final movement or their idea of their final movement until they get the next shot. So from there, you need to train that into your drills. So in my head, I'm like, damn, that's so true. I'm doing the same movement, but they're getting the exact same result at the end of it. So I need to change it up a little bit. So again, it's little pieces like that I think the kind of the social media aspect for me has really helped, because so many people have opinions and so many people have, like, Dan as well, from Portugal. You have the idea from Portugal, from Iran. You have all these different things that you've been able to see that when I show my sessions to people, you might say, hey, look, this is something that we're training in Iran. No one's really on it yet. You should probably try to implement this a little bit more. And then I try it and it works. You know what I mean? And it's crazy until eventually everyone starts to do it. Then it's normalized. But I think that's the beauty, for me, at least, the evolution of social media.
Let's not forget this. The skipping balls are so important and the most difficult to read. That are most difficult to read, and there's there's a number of goalkeeper coaches that neglect that kind of strike. So that's really important. I'm glad that you were doing that today.
Absolutely. I was doing it. It rained all last night and stuff like that. We've got to go to Colorado. I don't know what the field situation is going to be. I know it'll probably be wet, and I'm like, I'm going to use, thank God it rained last night, I'm going to use this to my advantage, and we're going to work on skipping balls, and we're going to work on that quick boom and like your timing and getting your body behind. You have to utilize that. And I think, Omar, for me, with you using the rebounder and him making that comment, like I try to make sure that when we're doing something, like it's not the same strike. Like I put every situation into it I possibly can. Sometimes I'll just tip the ball to the right and the keepers will stand there and they'll be like, what? I'm like, what? It's what? It's through ball. Go get it. Just because I said we were doing this doesn't mean that's not a live ball, and so it's keeping kind of your keepers on their toes in that sense.
Variation is important, and also working on deflections is crucial. Most of your goals are not world-class goals. Most of your goals are mistakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that was, sorry to cut you off, Stas, but I think that as well, when you talk about context, and again, probably saying this so many times, but when you're watching a session as well, like instead of, I used to be like that when I'd watch someone's session, I'd be like, I don't do it like that. This is not what I, this is not what I want to watch. This is not great. This is not what I perceive as a good session. And then again, you get those comments of like, hey, we're actually working on things that we started as an objective. We talked about earlier in the podcast, an objective on week 1. And then it kind of came up in like, game number 5. So we wanted to go back to it. This is a session specifically for that. So Saskia, if I were to see you this coming week or today maybe, and your goalkeepers are pairing and deflecting because you're using a wet surface, or you're trying to recreate a wet surface that you guys are going to play on, and you're saying, hey, even though this weekend we want you guys to try and hold things, this weekend's going to be very, very the field's going to be extremely wet. So can we start working on steering? Can we steer our deflections out of danger? And I'm going to put you in positions today where that happens. And as somebody who's, sitting away and not hearing the conversations you're having.
Juan was standing over there, and I'm sure he was looking at me like, what the hell is Saskia doing? And like Jane came walking up and she's like, how was your session? And I was just like, I'm focusing on the elements that we're about to walk into. I mean, it's going to be 30 degrees. It's going to be snowing. Again, I don't know if we're going to move to turf. I don't know how wet the field's going to be. And this is going to be a situation. Because if I was a coach and I came in, I'd be like, you guys better skip this ball in at that goalkeeper, because it's going to be taking off. And, whether the field's ice, and that means it's hard, one or the other. So I trained my keepers for it today, 100%.
Cool.
That right there just shows, honestly, Susk, how important, and again, I don't want to toot the horn of the goalkeeper coach again, but how important it is to have a goalkeeper coach that's thinking of the big picture. Because if there's not somebody there, and I know there are some college programs, Dan, in the United States who don't have a goalkeeper coach, or if they do have a goalkeeper coach, it's a young goalkeeper coach who may have just finished, just finished playing college even. And maybe they haven't thought about these types of things. And that's why it's so important to have a veteran presence that's thinking about, okay, these are the things that are not necessarily focused on the game in regards to technical, tactical, but more thinking about like the elements, like what's the situation going to be there in regards to the fans, the pressure of we need to make the playoffs, and we need to get this match game and stuff like that. And that's, I think, where the goalkeeper coach really comes into play, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, altitude, lighting, there's so many different elements that are going to impact the goalkeeper, the wind, which is our biggest enemy.
I said that today. I go, the worst thing to play, and I hate wind. Forget it.
It's something we can't control, and we got to deal with it. We got to practice in those kinds of conditions. That's why I go to nice fields. I go to terrible fields. I go to turf fields. I go to all kinds of conditions because I want my keeper to be able to adapt, in those conditions.
I would say,
do we have time?
There, though, and I'm sure Dan will agree with this. When something comes up like that, use it. Like if you're out here in beautiful sunny California, if you come out one day and the Santa Anas are kicking ass, and the wind is going, use it. Say, what can I do today? Because this might come up one day, and I don't get this all the time. I don't get these winds. I don't get this rain. I don't get this. So how am I going to right now take this session and throw something out there that if I walk into a game and winds are whipping, we've done this. We've worked on your positioning. We've worked that you should maybe, hold your line a little longer to judge it and stuff, because, those are conditions. You don't always get conditions. And especially where we live right now, you never get them.
How about when a keeper comes for a cross and it gets lost in the sun?
Yeah.
What happens? You can't call timeout. You got to play. If your judgment's correct and your assessment correct, and how they struck the ball, with foot they struck with it, the elevation of the ball, if your initial read is correct, you stay with your decision because the ball will find you.
I have one of my keepers, and I don't try not to do this. I have one of my keepers that is like, we're taking this side, and never likes to be in the sun. I'm like, get your ass on the other side. I'm like, get in the other goal now and deal with the sun. Deal with it. And I always stick her, because in her mind, she's like, I want to be, no, go and deal with it. Go. And my head coach knows that. And I'll look at her like, go, other side, go.
That sounds like me, by the way. But Omar, I want to ask you, because I think that's one of the things now. As obviously you started out, coaching at the youth level, and spent a little bit of time in college, and then really got in depth into coaching at the college level. One of the things I think that you first started recognizing when you got to the collegiate level is how important those little details were, the specificity to putting your sessions together, and really having the communication with the head coach on why this is why we're doing this. This is why we're doing that. Because if the goalkeeper, if the head coach sees you over there and you're doing all this stuff, and they're just like, what is it? It's like, this is ridiculous. Why are you doing this? And you don't have an answer on why you're doing it, then there's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Luckily I had a coach who always asked the why, and if I didn't have a why, it would make you feel really, really bad about yourself. So you're like, next time I'm not going to put myself in a situation. And sometimes you need that. You need to develop better habits. And I think, like we talked about early, putting your ego aside and putting sessions together that not just are going to make me feel good that I had a great session, but that we think we've all had those moments where in the game it's a long throw-in, and you and the goalkeeper have worked on long throw-ins all week, and exactly how you worked on it, the goalkeeper makes a save or makes a punch in the last minute of the game, and then all of a sudden they're pointing at you. I've had my goalkeeper Alex would point at me, and we're kind of like, we worked on that. And for me, that ego thing, putting it aside to actually what matters and what they're going to see is so much more important. And I think that's the evolution and experience that I've had over the last few years, is just have a why. And then if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, you know that you were intentionally, deliberately putting sessions together that they were going to see through the scouting report. And I think that, what Dan said earlier, he learned the business of winning. And I think the business of winning games as a goalkeeper coach is you get the scouting report. How best to your ability can you make the scouting report or the full week of training throughout the week? And then from there, you put it in your goalkeeper's hands and you pray to God that the person you selected will, apply that to their best ability.
Yeah. Attention to detail, my friends, right? Attention to detail. Yeah. I know we're probably getting close or running out of time here, but there's another observation I really want to quickly throw out there that has frustrated me. And how many clubs, at least in Connecticut, I'm not sure in your areas, that don't have a full-time goalkeeper director. And it's so short-sighted, because we all realize the importance of the goalkeeper to the success of the team, yet clubs and academies are unwilling to invest and pay goalkeeper coaches respectfully what they should get.
Or what they want, and this happened to me, or what they want is like, okay, you're director of goalkeeping, but we need you to run a team or 2 teams or 3 teams.
Exactly.
And I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to run 3 teams and coach all your goalkeepers and try to get to whatever games I can get to see what the goalkeepers are doing on the weekend? It's not going to happen. And so then all of a sudden, and I think part of that issue is now all of a sudden you're not paying what the salary, which could be honest, of the goalkeeper coach who's handling every team and every goalkeeper, because they're not the head coach of a team. And I think that's an issue as well.
We've all had that piercing look where the head coach is on the bench and the goalkeeper makes a mistake during the game and they look at you, right, with that piercing look, and they raise their hands like, what the hell just happened?
What are they doing? Oh, I'm sorry. I got to spend 30 minutes with them this week once.
Hey guys, Michael, do I have time for a quick story that's related to what we're talking about?
Absolutely, Dan. We'll make time for a story for you, and then we'll wrap it up, because I know Saskia and Omar have some things that they got to get to as well too. So,
yeah, I'm going to be running to it. I'm getting dressed for a session as we're speaking. It's a good thing. It's a good thing I'm not on camera right now. But this was in 2014 with Iran. We played Argentina in the World Cup. So obviously, I had to prepare, as I mentioned earlier, about preparing for the rhythm and the timing of the opponents and the style of play. And, you cannot prepare without considering Messi, who's a left-footed player. I brought in our best left-footed player so that our goalkeeper can have a look at that, which is a different look than a right-footed player. And we were in training camp in Brazil, and they happen to have a jugs machine there. Now, as I said earlier, I can't strike a ball like Messi. So my goalkeeper's weakest side, Omar and Saskia, was to his right. Okay, Messi's best shooting ball is to the goalkeeper's right upper hand corner with a bend. So I get this machine, I set it up, man. I mean, it's hitting perfect balls like Messi. I mean, unbelievable. The first time I put it out there, my goalkeeper doesn't even react, doesn't even move, because it's his weakest side. After a week, he's making a reaction. After a few days, he's getting a hand to the ball. After another few days, now and then he catches it. So all that preparation. So now we play Argentina. We're on the verge of one of the biggest upsets in the World Cup history. 93rd minute, we lose possession at midfield. Messi gets the ball, sizes it up like, he's golfing, and hits it with his left foot. It goes into the right-hand corner and beats my keeper. So no matter how well you prepare, sometimes some people at that level just have that magic, and you can't duplicate it.
I'll tell you, we got a player named Sunshine, and I've never seen a pure striker of the ball, no matter what. Every time she gets the right connection on the ball, you just go, goal. And it doesn't matter how good the woman is. It doesn't matter how much I've prepared the goalkeepers. I'll just stand there and be like, goal. I'm sorry. Giving you every tool. She's just so good.
So guys, really, the moral of the story is that
no matter how much you prepare,
there's going to
get up out of the back of the net.
Goals will, yeah, and I want all the young goalkeeper coaches out there to know, to tell all the young head coaches out there to know, goals are going to happen, and there's nothing we can do about. There's nothing we can do about
The
it.
best goalkeepers in the world give up the goals. That's one thing I always train my goalkeepers. I mean, you guys are talking about the high level, this and that. I'm working with 10-year-olds up to, collegiate keepers now, and I'm enjoying every minute, because it's pure. I'm making a difference. It's part of their development phase, and I'm just excited. I'm passionate about what I do, and it's great. And I tell all of them, no matter how good you may be or become, you will always concede a goal. It's how you process that. It's how you cope with it that's going to decide. There's only one secret that I know about this business, and that is, how do you deal with failure? The gift of failure. And because goalkeeper, and that's why you look at goalkeepers after their career, how many do we know that are extremely successful in other arenas? It's amazing, because the position, the characteristic of the position demands so much of ourselves in terms of leadership, communication, bouncing back, all that sort of stuff that prepares us for life.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I think we have to start wrapping up right here. Dan, before we go, if anybody there wants to know more about what you guys do over at SGA, want to check out maybe your sessions locally or the camps and everything like that, where's the best place for them to reach out?
Stargoalkeeper.com is my website, and I have things on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not the most socially savage, so just Google Dan Gaspar and it'll take you to different things, I guess.
Dan, really quick, and everybody out there, Dan and I trained with Dan when I was younger and everything, and my dogs agree. Obviously, it'd be great to see your face, Dan, but it's been absolutely amazing just talking to you, and being like-minded still. I love it.
I have so much respect for you. You're one of the strongest, most powerful athletes that I've worked with. And that's what I remember about you, your presence, your intimidation factor. You were a great athlete, man.
Thanks.
Well,
thanks.
And guys, if you want to know more about Saskia Webber's illustrious career, you can reach out to her directly on social media at Saskia_Webber. If you want to see Omar hitting balls just like Ronaldo or Messi, you can go at ProGK Academy_. Guys, contact at InsideThe18media.com. Oh, there's the face right there.
Hey, Dan. Good to see you.
I can't believe it. I just turned it on. I can't believe it. Yeah, great to see you too.
Oh my gosh! And now it's working. We'll have to do this another time when we get the technology figured out. Dan, contact at InsideThe18media.com. Guest suggestion, topic suggestion at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later,
Bye,
guys.
guys.